Welcome to our 38th episode of Black Dance Stories. Thank you for your patience as always. Here's a note about why we are here. Our dance world was pummeled by COVID-19, and Black dance artists are finding ways to talk about life during this time. Our world was further turned upside down after horrible events ensued nationally and globally, bringing attention yet again to the need for the Black Lives Matter movement. Black dance artists have not been quiet. Black dance artists have been doing the work. Black dance artists continue to make work. To stay involved, we hold these weekly impromptu discussions and tell stories. Black dance stories. This is one action, and we will stay involved. We are a community working together to support, uphold, highlight, and celebrate Black creatives. Tonight is our 38th episode of what we hope will be many Black dance stories told in the artist's own voices. Tonight, it's Christal Brown and Edisa Weeks' turn. Please meet some of our BDS family. I will go first. I am Charmaine Warren. I am a light-skinned Jamaican. I am the great-granddaughter of Ida Boyd, granddaughter of Solomon Goldson and Ruby Chapman, and one of 9 children by Theophilus Warren and my 95-year-old mother, Pearline Warren, who lives in Jamaica. I am the aunt and grand aunt of 25 plus nieces and nephews at last count. I am a non-disabled Black woman. Now and forever, I promise to acknowledge those who came before me and have toiled to make it possible for me to be present on this land. Today, I give homage to the Native people by acknowledging that I live on the stolen land of the indigenous Lenape people, now known as Montclair, New Jersey, with my husband, photographer, and graphic artist, Tony Turner. Our daughter, Ashe Turner, a Black ballerina with locks, is in her junior year at Boston Conservatory. I have locks that are wrapped on top of my head in a blue and white gele. I'm wearing a white t-shirt, blue and white earrings with a cowrie shell at the end. Behind me are photos of our family, a large plant, a lamp, and African masks. Happy Black Dance Stories Thursday, BDS family. Thank you for showing up, for spreading the word, and for being part of our continuous love fest. We love you. I turn it over to Kimani.
Yes, we love you, and I love you, Charmaine.
Love you
So
back.
I love you, Makida. Love Fest,
Love
okay?
fest.
So welcome y'all in the
And
words
we love Sharuk.
the Sharuk, we love you too. So in the words of Gloria Grimes, delicious, delightful dancing night. Yes, happy place. The importance of acknowledging our familial and dance legacies is an essential tradition. And in keeping with the tradition, I recognize my Indigenous brothers and sisters as a first step in moving toward action. With profound respect, I honor and acknowledge the Lenape, whose stolen land I am zooming from, currently known as the village of Harlem. I am a Black, non-disabled woman, and I live with my 10-year-old son. I am sitting in my dining room surrounded by white walls. I have golden hair with close natural curls. I am wearing a red and black polka dotted shirt with sterling silver giant hoop earrings. I am the granddaughter of Lucille Madison, a wise and giving English professor. I teach because of her. Daughter of Ronald Augustus Fowlin, Jamaican warrior and gourmet chef, and Anne Fowlin, rebel and Renaissance woman. I dance because of them. My son Tamayo keeps me present as I witness this growing boy. I am in awe of his amazing talents and his blossoming spirit. And with the blossoming spirit of Makida, I turn it over to Makida.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Good evening, everyone. My name is Makida Lilly and Wabunkosi Margie Rose Roney. I'm in this human experience as an able-bodied Black, Indigenous American woman. pronouns she, her, hers, and they, an acknowledgement of my ancestors, my spirit team that is all around me, and that is me. I come from a long generational line of artists and energetic intuitives, both on my maternal and paternal line sides, the Love Roni line, which extends through so many amazing and powerful people, names, and ancestors that I send my love and gratitude to every day, even by just being here. I'm the daughter of Nia Love and Antoine Roney, sister of Kojo Roney, Zipporah Roney, and Turquoise Love. All of us beautiful, powerful artists. I am Zooming from Harlem, which was respectfully and harmoniously occupied by the unceded Lenape. I am a life, body, soul alchemist in which I turn ethereal matter into what we call dance, movement, art, poetry, and whatever else my soul is called to channel and express love, light, and truth. I am in my loft bedroom, sitting on a love seat. Behind me is a bookshelf with books and plants. I am wearing a gray spaghetti strap shirt, I guess, or I don't know what that's called, a shirt that's showing my arms. And I have a black little shawl, wearing gold hoop earrings, a gold Hamza hand necklace, and my hair is out and curly. And I'm so happy to be here. So, community is such a big part of Black Dance Stories. So we want to know who's watching tonight. Let us know where you're coming from. Drop some chats, some comments in the chat. My voice and my language is all funny today. Say hello where you're watching from. Feel free to just engage, ask questions, share love. Also, please follow us on our social media. Our Instagram is at Black Dance Stories. Our Twitter is at BLK Dance Stories. Both of our Instagram and Twitter links are in the chat as well as the description of this video. And most importantly, please subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. We have a huge goal of making it to 1,000 subscribers, and we're like almost there, like under 200 people. So, share and follow, subscribe, please share with your community. We have a subscriber Sunday, so look out for that on our social media. And if you're on our newsletter, a day where we illuminate our amazing community and encourage more people to be a part of this growing community. We always just thank you so much for your continual love and support. So without further ado, everyone, grab yourself some wine, some water, some tea. I have kombucha, coffee, and let's cheers to Black Dance Stories.
Cheers.
And I pass it to Kimani.
Thank you, Makida. Two more things quickly. One, please, we need your donations to keep this going. And think of this like going out to a show, which we're slowly almost able to do. Woo! And I want to, in all seriousness, say, in light of recent events that ignites psychological, spiritual, and physical pain to our community again and again, we will stay vigilant. Our BDS team will continue to stand in solidarity with our sisters and brothers all over the world, with all those who want an immediate end to racial violence and systemic racism. Please do your part. Don't stay silent. With that, I turn it over to Charmaine.
Thank you, Kimani. Thank you, everybody out there. We're here for you, and we know that you're here for us. It's a big job to carry all of this on our shoulders, but we're doing it. So thank you for being here. All right, Maki and Kimani are gonna say ciao for a little bit. And we're gonna bring in Christal Brown. Christal, come on in, sis. Hey, introduce yourself. First, cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Take a sip when you cheers.
Let me follow directions.
Follow directions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Black dance at its
Like,
finest.
this is how we begin, right? Ah, welcome, sis.
Wait.
Introduce yourself and all those things.
Okay, I'm going to try my best to follow you guys. My name is Christal Brown. I am the daughter of Jacqueline M. Brown and Maurice Clinton Brown Jr. I am the sister of Maurice Clinton Brown III, the aunt of Darian Brown, and the mother of Gabriel Giovanni Grant Jr. I am a mother, an artist, an educator, a disciple, a coach, and I stand on the shoulders of many ancestors. Some of them that I brought into this virtual room with me tonight. This necklace was a gift that was given to me when I was taking my first tour with Chuck Davis, who laid the groundwork and the foundation for my entire career. And being that I started my career with him as a young dancer who had no formal African dance training and was asthmatic, I've also conjured him tonight by putting some peppermint oil in my nose, which is what kept me alive on tour. I am also right now joining you from Middlebury, Vermont, which is on the unceded land of the Abenaki. And I am a person who loves people. So, partially, what I am here with and for tonight is to try to continue to spread the Black dance legacy of love in all its facets, similar to Kimani and what Charmaine was talking about in terms of how we keep things going and how we carry heavy loads. We are people who love hard, and that love is not always pleasant, right? Because love has a lot of work to it. So I just am so happy to be here. I wanted to do just a little introduction about how I got here because I think my Black dance story is pretty funny. And I mean, maybe you'll think it's funny, who knows? But here's what I have to share, right? So I come from a very small family. You should know that. Not a lot of people. My mother had two children. Her brother had two children. My grandparents had a couple kids, right? We weren't that kind of large spatial family, right? We didn't have a lot of people. I actually didn't meet my father's side of the family until he passed away. That was 21 years ago. My mother passed away 3 years ago, and I somehow took up the mantle as the matriarch of our family. And so my dance family is huge. And people, I think, sometimes wonder how I stay so connected to my dance family. And it's because my biological family is not that big. And I really love being a part of people's lives in that way. So, funny story. That's not the funny part. Here's the funny part. So, people are like, oh my gosh, Christal, you are a great dancer. You've had an amazing career, super prolific. Da 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 da. And I actually started my dance career because I got dropped off at the wrong place in a carpool. My best friend's mom was supposed to drop me off at a piano lesson. Later, we realized that my mother was making me take piano lessons when at her 70th birthday brunch, she announced that she made a huge mistake trying to force me to play the piano. And it was really to make it right that when her mother told her to go to piano lessons, she would take the money and go to the candy store instead and then come back without having taken the lesson. Right. So, just a side note out there for all the parents trying to get your kid to do the right thing that you didn't do. It's never really going to end up right. So I get dropped off at this dance studio. I end up watching my friend Alicia take a ballet class, and I then begin to understand the art of negotiation on a very deep level. So I went back home and I talked to my mother about letting me take dance class instead of piano lessons. Maybe I could do both. I would practice more piano if she let me dance more. And lo and behold, this thing called dance took a hold of me and answered one of the first questions that I can ever remember about my life experience. One of the essential questions, and I say that as an educator, right? Because we know now that the power of the question determines the quality of your life. And so the first question I can remember asking is, how do people find God? And dance taught me that. Dance taught me that people find God through other people. They find it through discipline. They find it through repetition. They find it through rehearsal. And they find it through doing what's necessary, not what they love or what they might like in the moment. And so what I learned from dance all these years beginning with being dropped off at the wrong place is that there are really no mistakes, and that the mistakes are lessons that get washed off or washed out or worked through in the rehearsal of things. And I've done that in every part of my career. So I went to the University of North Carolina at Greensboro for undergrad. My father died the year before I graduated from college. And lo and behold, I had applied for an internship at American Dance Festival. Another side note, right? They didn't pick me. I didn't get the internship. Somebody in front of me dropped out though, right? Just like being dropped off at the car in the wrong place at the carpool. Somebody in front of me dropped out. And then I got to have this amazing internship where I met everyone who would actually be influential in my career. I met Carmen de Lavalade. I met Donna McHale, who used to sing to me every day in my office when I would take him to the grocery store. I met Ron Brown at that time. I met Peter DeMuro, who would later bring me on to the Liz Lerman Dance Exchange, and where I got to work with Liz as a mentor and as an advocate. Later on, I also met Io Janine Jackson, who would give my picture to Bill T. Jones and say, "Can we have her here for an audition?" Right. So everybody that I met that summer changed my life in some way. I also met Andrea Woods at my first International Association of Blacks in Dance conference that I took myself to as an independent study, because the real plan was to graduate from college with a degree in dance and a minor in business and go back to my hometown and become the first Black dance teacher. My father died. My father, I should say, had lost both of his legs in Vietnam and was a retired military Purple Heart veteran. And so he was going to be my business partner. Not that he was that great at business, but that it was going to be like a military loan type of thing. It was going to be great. But you want to make God laugh, you make a plan. So my father passes away, and my professors at the time push me into this performance track and say, "Oh, well, we think you can do it." Now, side note, I didn't think they believed I could do it before, because I was never cast in any of these other kind of shows or anything. Um, but the year before I graduated, or I took myself to the International Association of Blacks in Dance conference with some friends that I had met at ADF, Kalia London, and some other people, um, and met Andrea Woods, and she invited me to work on a piece called Sweet Willie Mae, which was my first company job and the first tour that took me out of the country. And so at that point, I thought, okay, well, maybe I can make a go of this. And the next thing I know, I just kept saying yes. And then that led to auditioning for Chuck Davis, which led to an invitation to join the Liz Lerman Dance Exchange as an apprentice, which led to Liz and I making a deal that if she would be responsible for me artistically, that I would be responsible for her logistically, because I had this business background, and so I could keep her calendar, and I got to sit at the feet of a genius. So I had already sat at the feet of Chuck Davis, and then I was sitting with Liz Lerman, and then I get this call from Io Janine Jackson, who says, "I need a picture of you to show to my boss." And I say, "Who's your boss?" And she says, "Bill T. Jones." And I go, what is that gonna do? My leg doesn't go that high, right? So then I go to this audition, and I start apprenticing with, I say no. I go back, and then my other mother, Donna Faye Birchfield, says, "Who do you think you are? You don't say no to Bill T. Jones." And so I kind of got really comfortable in Maryland, like, oh, I love this place. So the audition came up again. I moved to New York. I slept on Io's couch, which then led me to open up my couch for so many people that I've lost count. Right, so I used to say, Io beget Christal, Christal beget Rhea, Rhea beget, right? So we had this kind of way that we were keeping track of our lineage, thematically based on whose couch, who was sleeping, and how you got to New York. Um, and then after that, a position opened up with Urban Bushwomen. I was able to tour with Urban Bushwomen for 3 or 4 seasons. I got to be a performer. Got to make both of the Walking with Pearls with an amazing cast of women, um, and then be the apprentice program coordinator, which was really a real treat for me to be able to pass on that legacy and to challenge people in that way. And then, lo and behold, I got this call to come teach a workshop at Middlebury College, and I came for a weekend. Then they asked me to come back for a week. Then they asked me to come back for a month. Then they asked me to come back for a year, and I said, I don't know, it's cold. I'm from I'm from North Carolina. It's cold up there. Y'all get a lot of snow. And so I negotiated to come half the year for 4 years. This was after I had already started my company in Spirit in New York, and we were thriving. My dear friend Paloma McGregor and I had launched a community engagement project called Project Becoming, which is now a national project with college partners and all kinds of things. And I was really feeling pretty solid. So I negotiated to come for half the year for 4 years. And then lo and behold, a human being came out of my body. And I felt like, oh, we should probably stay somewhere clear. I should probably like be not be running around, even though I did drag him a lot of places. My son Gabe was born in 2010, and we moved to Vermont in 2012 full time. I subsequently became the chair of the program, um, the director of a program called Midcore. Again, bringing my kind of entrepreneurship business background to the forefront. Have continued to teach. And I said at that time, I got one more person that I feel like I would ever work for, and that's BB Miller. And I walked up to BB at Blondell Cummings, one of my dear mentors, memorial service at New York Live Arts, and said, Miss Miller, I don't know if you know me, but if you have anything that I can do, I'm on sabbatical and I would love to work for you. And she said, oh, I think I might have something. And a year later, I was on tour with BB Miller. And that was really, for me, the culmination of everything that I had read in the textbooks about Black dance. I had gone from Chuck to Jowale, from Andrea Woods to Chuck Davis to Jowale Willa Josala to Bill T. Jones to B.B. Miller. And when I look back at my career, all having done that in the time span of before I was 40 years old, the canon of dance that is embodied in my structure, in my being, in this skin that is the color of pecan shells, sitting in a basement, which I call my dream cave in Middlebury, Vermont, is something that I can't write about. I can't catalyze. I can only show it. And it's coming about in this new piece that we're working on now called What We Ask of Flesh, which has been a magical experience to make with another canon of dancers who come from a lineage that I helped create, which is also feeling like magical, overwhelming. I can't believe it, overjoyed. Is this really my life? This little girl from Kinston, North Carolina, how did this happen? Um, but people like Robin Wilson, who is one of the founding members of Urban Bush Women, said yes to a project of mine. She's in this work. Dancers like Ricardo Valentine and Orlando Hunter, who have been a part of my legacy for the last 7 to 10 years. Dancers who I taught when they were in high school, Claudia Lynn Reitmeyer and Alexander Diaz, and dancers who I've just met like Malcolm McMichael. So it's a continuation of this lineage of really loving people and finding out how they find God, right? So we often say that God is love. And in this trajectory of my Black dance career, I have tried my best to do exactly what Chuck Davis taught me in the beginning, which is peace, love, respect for everybody. So it's a pleasure to be here tonight. Charmaine, if I missed anything, I'm happy to talk about anything else, but I want to make sure that my friend Edisa, who I respect and love very much, gets a chance to get in here and chat.
You're good. You're good. Maybe some more about In Spirit, though, because In Spirit, 100 years ago, and then you said my collaborator on What We Ask of Flesh, and you didn't name any names other than, are the collaborators all the names you named?
Those are all the movement collaborators. So we have an amazing friend, brother, composer, Farai Malianga. We have an amazing dramaturg, Ariel Julia Brown, excuse me. And the piece is actually inspired by a writer named Ramika Bingham. So In Spirit itself was first created as really, for me, a bridge. So I take a lot of influence from my mother, who did not graduate from college but became a politician and was a county commissioner in our town for 23 years. So she knew how to put things together. She knew how to get people to rally around a cause. And I have photos of me at 9 years old standing up in folding chairs, giving the welcome for the Black Caucus meetings, right? So she brought me into a lot of communities where I could understand that when you get people on the same page, you build bridges to bigger things, everyone gets access, and that access leads to change. And so that's been another part of my career. So InSpirit was actually formed, again, people might not know this, that when I started to have a performance career that was bigger than I thought I ever deserved or wanted, I started to meet women who were much better dancers than me. Just like hands down, like I couldn't keep up. Like, I don't know how I have this job and you don't. That's what I would say to them. And I'd understand that they had trained their entire lives to be sitting where I was, and I had felt like I had just kind of fallen into it, right? And so I built this company so that everyone and every woman I knew who was coming to New York to pursue her dream could at least find a home and collaborate. Right. And so out of this legacy, there was, right, like we said, Paloma McGregor, Beatrice Capote, Kristen Duncan, Shawnee Collins was a part of the collective at one point, Jamie Filbert. These are like original OGs, Rhea Patterson, all kinds of people, Melena Lloyd, when I think about it, Siobhan Stewart, all these women who have gone on to either start their own companies, Alexandra Joy Warren, Tony Renee Johnson, starting their own companies or being dynamic forces in the fields that they chose after. And then, after I had my son, I kind of said, oh, I'm done with dance. I'm going to go be a great mother and a good teacher. I'm going to be a professor. That's going to be my life. And a gentleman by the name of Fred Ho, who was a prolific jazz musician, was actually kind of like the bionic man at this point. He had had several surgeries, and he was asking his agent to find me because he had seen some of my work in 2004 at the Joyce Soho. And he was wanting someone to choreograph the last piece of music he would ever write called the Sweet Science Suite, which was an homage to the life and legacy of Muhammad Ali. So I get this call and I'm, like, yeah, I'm done with dance. He's like, well, can you just meet with Fred? And I was asked to come to Beth Israel Hospital to meet with Fred, and they were taking staples out of his chest, and he was asking me to do this project. And I had prepared my no speech in the car, but I couldn't get it out. And so that in turn led to me creating a piece called The Sweet Science Suite with Fred Ho at the Guggenheim, which was an all male cast. And what I learned in that process from these gentlemen who were so available to me for these 2 weeks in the BAM Attic studio was that there was a large part of my physicality, having trained in acrobatics, kung fu, tap ballet, jazz, having trained in all these things that I had really suppressed for many years because it wasn't asked for, it wasn't acceptable in the things that I was doing. It was, it was kind of crossover commercialish, and people were like, oh, this is modern dance. And when I got into the studio with these men, all of this energy started to burst out of me. And I started to look at it really clearly, like, oh, with the women, I was really clear on the details. And with the men, I'm really pushing the energy. And I had to like reconcile that also in myself. And so this piece toured for 7 years, had 4 different casts. Again, Ricardo Valentine, Orlando Hunter, oh gosh, so many people. Dante Brown, Cameron McKinney, Jay Bowie, Wendell Gray. I'm gonna forget some people. Forgive me, guys. So many people, right? They're gonna come to me later. Um, and that piece toured and really was one of those moments where you understand the power of having a cast of all Black men, especially when we were performing in Charlottesville, Virginia after the riot, and understanding how to bring community together in that way, and watching also the legacy of Muhammad Ali from a different perspective, understanding that this was a man who had a deep, deep purpose in life and didn't care how he had to live it, but he was going to be true to it, right? And so again, now that we were in that kind of transition and evolution from this all female company to this all male company, it was kind of like, now what's next? And again, I said, I'm just going to go back and be a great teacher and focus on my son. And I got this question of what we ask of flesh, and I started working on it as a solo, and now it's turned into what people will see soon as probably a digital documentary. It's over on the Jacob's Pillow website now to be able to watch the residency if people want to tune in. But ultimately, probably by the fall, we'll have a digital um, a digital piece out and available. And
You
okay.
you were trying to slip by that one.
I don't. I mean, it's so many things. I mean, that's the thing about how we get so frustrated about the stories and the history
Yeah.
book, because there's so much behind it, right? Like I
Yeah.
learned having real conversations with Blondell, having real conversations with
Oh.
having real conversations with Liz, having real conversations with Baba. When we used to tour, and my mother used to make him sweet potato pies. It's just like all of the things that are so nuanced about living, moving, breathing, and being on tour with people, that it is the ultimate family relationship, right? And so there's so many things that get left out. There's so many stories the dancers could probably tell. They are the reason that my coaching practice even exists, because we would be on tour and we would have a company meeting, the guys, and they would turn their phones on, and I'd say, "What are you guys? Why do you have your phone on?" They're like, "We're recording this," and I was like, "For what?" They were like, "Because we're going to listen to this later. This is a whole podcast." And I'd be like, "What?" And so it gave me the idea to start a weekly vlog, and the weekly vlog turned into a coaching certification, which turned into a platform, which turned into a clientele, which turned into me having this whole other life, which is another thing that I love, because it allows me to love people. I realized that the magic that we had in the studio and the classroom with, things I would do just naturally, and things I would say just naturally to my students and to my dancers, were really transformative. And there are a lot of people who are never going to have the courage to meet me in a dance studio. But it's not, that doesn't mean they don't want to change, doesn't mean they don't want to learn, doesn't mean they don't want to do this work, right? And so it was me just kind of bringing the magic outside of the studio, putting it in a different structure and offering it to the world.
I'm going to bring a little bit of magic, more magic into our world here. Come on in, Edisa, with your magic next to Christal.
Super
And
magic.
there are friends here. Pooja Vasan, Elizabeth Zimmer, Tia Shank, Abby Weeks, Kayla Dodler, Richard Colton, Joanna Cutsey, Brianna Green, Henry Lee, Liana Hamos, Vincent Brown, Zaylin Young, Ken Prado, Jacob Pecha, Lori Upprichard, Travian Pollard, Clarence Brooks, Stephanie Tooman, Monique Haley, Wendy Parent, and Jay Bowie is here too.
Big love, big love, big love.
Big love. So this is when I get to just listen to the stuff. I'm gonna leave you two for a little bit. And I often say behave yourself, but I have a feeling you won't.
We're good.
Yeah, right. See you in a minute.
Hey, Edisa.
Hey, what's the expression, Charmaine? History wasn't made by well-behaved women, or well-behaved women didn't make history.
Maybe not.
But I loved hearing that you had done Sweet Science Suite.
Oh yeah.
And I had forgotten that. And I have to say that was the most amazing work. And I felt Fred reached a whole nother level of merging this amazing kind of spiritual and soul connection in that work. I felt it was like his last piece before he died, and he poured his heart and soul into that piece.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. It was a real calling. It was a real calling higher for me. And so, it's, I often say, like even with me being dropped off at the wrong place to start my dance career, right? Some of the pieces that I will be most well known for were not my idea.
Mm. Mm.
Right. And I'm so fine with that. Right. Like, I just feel like when you get called into something, it calls you higher, and you have to see yourself differently in order to even make it. Like even getting called into academia before Penny Campbell was like, "Hey, I think you need to be here," or my friend Tiffany called me to teach this masterclass. I was like, "I'm good." right? Like it just didn't even wasn't even like on my radar.
Yeah, I totally love these. You said something about there are really no mistakes.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. In that sense, there's a lot of happy accidents.
yeah.
There's another quote that I love, which is I first heard it from Malcolm X, that preparation, sorry, luck equals preparation meets opportunity.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And I
How? Mhm.
no, go ahead.
Well, just that sense that needing to be open to what might happen,
Yeah,
and because there are always these different pathways and crossroads that you come up to, and which one do you choose and which one do you go down, and just being prepared so
yeah,
that when you get to those crossroads you can go, all right, I'm making this choice and going down it.
exactly. And and that it all counts.
Hmm.
It's all teaching. It's all training. It's all learning. It's all growing. Whatever it feels like.
Yeah, yeah.
Everything. We have this thing in my coaching practice where we say the content of your life is the curriculum for your evolution.
Mm.
And sometimes we don't want to really go into content. We don't want to read all the pages anymore. We just want to be like skip to the good part, right? So
But it's all those pages that build character,
exactly.
and there can be a lot of trauma and pain but also a lot of joy in that journey, and
Right.
that's what builds character.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm a fan, so let's just get that out there. I want to be weeks when I grow up. And I'm gonna say the one of the things that I really admire about you, Edisa, is your clarity in bringing your imagination to life without making any concessions. And I say that having watched your work and thought to myself, "Oh, would I have gone that far? Would I have reared back not just in concept but even in theory, in diving, in bringing your whole self to the question, right? And I think I've watched you do this several times and thought, you know that's a different level of inquiry than I think, well, I don't want to say capable of, but like, it's not where I go first. Yeah,
Thank you. I mean, that's a huge, huge, huge compliment.
of course.
um, I think I had to learn that the hard way.
Mm,
And I was given an opportunity when I was working with Homer Avila to create a work on Ailey's second company.
mhm,
And we created a work called Cotton Thermidor's Twilight. And we were like, oh my God, it's this opportunity. We gotta like make it fierce and fabulous. It's Ailey's second company. They gotta have their legs up to here and like be turning and doing all this stuff. And so we like threw our entire kitchen sink into that piece.
uh-huh.
It was way too much. For now, I'm like, thank you, dancers, for taking that journey with us, because it was not an easy piece to do because it was just all over the place. But what was challenging about it is we only had 3 weeks to create a work.
Mm, yeah.
And it's a very corporate construct of a model. You can do it, it can happen. And I realized that my process takes time. And because I love just being able to go down rabbit holes and going, okay, where did that rabbit hole take me? And there's might be this wealth of discovery and gold and soil that's nutritious in that rabbit hole, or it might be one that totally stinks, and you're like, ooh, I need to get out of that rabbit hole fast. But I don't know that unless I go down that rabbit hole. And when you have to work like this, it doesn't allow for rabbit holes.
Mhm, mhm,
So for part of it, it was how can I create structures where I can create work over extended period of time
yeah,
and really know what I'm creating and why I'm creating it,
yeah,
and being able to dive deep. And it's hard because I feel our current structure, in terms of corporate structure and the funding structure, doesn't really allow for that. Also, presenters don't really allow for that because it's also that we want the new thing. You did that already. We don't want to see it again. You can tour it, but if you already did it in one city, we're not bringing it back. But I'm like, but we've discovered all these new things about the piece, and they're like, but you've already did it, and I'm like, but I'm
yeah.
still on it.
Mhm, mhm, yeah. I just heard something from someone different that I follow, Joseph Pridgeon. He said, that he was actually following someone else who said people love new, but they don't love finished.
Mm.
right? And so in the art world, especially dance, I think we get caught up in that a lot, even in this lineage and legacy that we come from. Like the whoever you've worked for, whoever you've studied with becomes a part of what people expect from you. And even a departure from that takes time for people to calibrate as your authentic voice.
Mhm.
Right. And so even in what you're describing, this last piece that I was just talking about, what we ask of flesh took 5 years.
Mm.
But I didn't, again, I want, be very clear about my privilege in this particular space, right? Like I don't make dances to feed my child. Right. So I don't have to rush in that way, right? And I could somehow subvert some of the normal funding structures by not needing as much capital from an outside investor.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so we in that kind of system that you're saying is kind of broken, we really do have to figure out how to get the laboratory time paid for these spiritual artistic vaccines that we're creating moment by moment, right? We really got to get some funding behind that in a way that doesn't ask for a product so quickly.
I keep thinking of the BBC, British Broadcast Television in England. Part of why historically they've been able to do very sort of experimental, I say experimental with a small e, work is that every single British citizen pays $200
Mhm.
towards the British broadcast. So then you have this pool of money that's not dependent upon corporations or advertising that can go towards experimental work. I mean, I think it's starting to change now, and there's some people like, why am I being forced to pay $200 if I don't watch television? I mean, there's always issues with everything, but at
Right.
the same time, it allows for work that's not being driven by sort of corporate agendas.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
don't know that BBC is a corporate agenda, but it does allow you to go down uh, pathways that wouldn't normally be supported.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I almost feel like we need something like that here.
Yeah.
Arts, because the NEA is not really working that well, and it's only like what less than one. I think it's only 2% of a national budget.
Right. Right. Right.
So,
It goes to the back. It goes to, I think, for me, a bigger question, Edisa, of like, what do we really value? And as even as we're talking now in this idea of black dance, right? We've come to we've had to come to a real place of excavating what we value. Is it the quote unquote technique? Is it the stories we're telling? Is it the amount of sweat we give, right? Like, is it telling, telling our deepest, darkest secrets? Is it telling our history? Is it all of these things that we have created these value constructs around, but still have a dependency on, if they're accepted or not. So I think we go back and forth, right? With again, there's problems with everything, right? Like people don't want to. Why do I have to pay the $200, right? But also, you look at places like France, where like in their constitution, people are guaranteed art
mm,
because it's a value structure, right? It's not life, liberty, pursuit of your own happiness. It's like and the love of art, like that process of setting up the value structure first. Yeah.
yeah, we need a radical revolution of values. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
Like we need to be also be able to embrace all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Just like black dance, we don't say white dance, we don't say Asian dance. So why do we say black dance? I
Right.
mean, and I love that black dance stories exist. Don't get me wrong.
I was about to jump through the box. The words couldn't come out. Maybe I got Mackey's today, but I was about to jump through the box and get you, Edisa.
No, it's that how can we celebrate all of who we are?
Yeah.
And so if we're talking about a dance style, how can I be amazing ballerina who is black, or an amazing modern dancer, or amazing Hawaiian dancer, or amazing Bratyanatyan dancer, but I'm a black person. But within that, respecting the cultural
Yeah.
traditions and lineages that you are embracing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but how can we really celebrate the whole diversity of
Mm-hmm.
what is African diasporic dance?
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree because it is so rich and so full, and ultimately has an influence in it permeates everything that we do anyway. I mean, so the isolation is, I think what you're saying is like it's too small.
Yeah.
We got a larger audience. They keep coming.
Hey y'all, hey family.
Come on now. So
Oh.
Amy Casello is here. What? What? Joan Finkelstein. Hello. Michaela Wage, Rebecca Fitton, Ryan Granados, V Weeks, the letter V, and Hank Smith is here, y'all. For you. For you. All right, Christal.
See you in a bit.
See you in a bit. Edisa.
Oh, Charmaine. Thank you.
Cheers, my friend.
Cheers.
Cheers. Introduce yourself, and the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you. And thank you, everyone who's here with us. I am the child of Mary Margaret Kironde Weeks, who is the child of Ernesti Samwiri Wampamba Kironde and Edisa Sanyu Ndegire Kironde from Uganda, Africa, in East Africa. I'm also the child of Sheldon Griswold Weeks from Brooklyn, New York, who is the child of Harold Eastman Weeks and Virginia Travell Weeks. I am very happily married to Daryl Hell, also known as Daryl Montgomery, but he goes by Hell. When we got married, I told everybody I was going to hell. And I didn't take his last name because I would have been Weeks in Hell, which would have been a mess. Hell makes sense for him, but I go by Edisa Juliana Merembe Kironde Weeks is my full name. I have one brother and three sisters. I am living in Bedford-Stuyvesant, New York, which is the stolen land of the Lenape and Canarsie people. I find Bedford-Stuyvesant very fascinating because in 1830s, it was part of the Weeksville community, which was a very, very strong free Black community based in Brooklyn, New York. And then it got changed and transformed. It's very fascinating to be in what is still now a predominantly Black neighborhood, but it's named after two white people who were slave owners and enslaved people. And so that just the importance of knowing history so we don't repeat the mistakes of history, but also understand like what are we building upon. And I feel like I stand on many, many, many shoulders. Let's see. I was born in Boston, New York, Massachusetts. And when I was about 3 years old, my family moved to Uganda, which is where my mother is from. And we lived there till I was about 9. And round about 8 years of old, when I was 8, a former dancer with the British Royal Ballet who was living in Uganda, her husband was with the embassy, approached my mom and asked if she could give me private ballet lessons. And I was like, didn't know what ballet was. I'd never seen a ballet company before, had never seen a tutu. All I knew is that someone wanted to like take me away from my friends. And so when my mom asked me if I wanted to have ballet classes, I was like, no way, I don't want to do that. What's that? I don't know what ballet is. And again, it's one of those forks in the road where you kind of wonder, oh my God, what would have happened if I had taken that pathway and that journey? But I think because of that, when I was 9 and we returned to Brooklyn, New York, my mother put me into ballet classes. And it was in the neighborhood local ballet school at Cadman Plaza Park in Brooklyn, New York. And I was the only Black kid in the class, and everybody had already made their friends. And so I felt like the odd one out. And then also at that time, my brother, who I worshiped, he was 2 years older than me, told me that ballet was for sissies. And I did not want to be a sissy. So I just went up to mom and I was like, I don't want to take ballet classes anymore. And it's one of those, again, forks in the road where I wish she had talked to me and said, well, why don't you want to take ballet classes? Because I actually liked it, but I just didn't want to be a sissy. And it just felt like the odd person out because I didn't know anybody else and everybody had already formed their cliques. And so fast forward high school, we started a dance program. We didn't have a teacher at that time, but they're a group of my like good friends. We got together and we started making dances. And as part of that, I remember I created a solo. It was 10 minutes too long. I am so glad that we did not have cell phones back then. But it was a solo that I did about essentially immigrating to America. And I remember recording the music on the little cassette tapes. And we lived right next to a fire engine. And so as I was recording it, there's the sound of the fire engine going by. And I was like, oh, that's perfect. Because it's all about, the struggle of coming to a new place and all the challenges that you embrace when you come to a new, country. Um, so I danced through high school. Really grateful for the friends who supported me through that. Also, Bonnie, who started offering dance classes. So that was the first time I started getting a hint of like, oh, this isn't just like sticking ideas together, but you can actually like craft a dance. And I still wasn't thinking about a career as a dancer. Um, and when I graduated from high school, I just wanted to take time off, but I couldn't tell my mom what I wanted to do. So she was like, you're going to college. And I'm like, but I want to take a year off. And she was like, you're going to college. Unless you have something to do, you're going to college. And I'm grateful I got into Brown University. And my like second or third week there, I was hanging out on the lawn in the sun, and this person came up to me and she's like, you look like a dancer. And she's like, I'm starting a dance company. Do you want to be a part of it? And that was Paula Franklin. And she invited me to be part of Fusion, which was a student organized dance company at Brown. And it became like family. And it's amazing because now 30 plus years later, that student dance company is still going. And I should go back to a point, because in high school, mom was also trying to find things to do with me, and being a single mom, and trying to find outlets for her children. She had me audition, and I joined Marie Brooks Children's Dance Company, which was an amazing, amazing experience. The youngest person was 9 years old. The oldest was 21. We learned dances. We learned Adowa from Ghana. We learned dances from Tanzania. We worked with Louis Johnson, which was amazing as a teenager to be able to work with Louis Johnson. Who else was with us? Doris Green taught us drumming. So that was an amazing experience. Maria Mitchell came in and taught us modern. And Maria Brooks was like a force of energy, because we toured all around the New York State area. We did a tour to Europe where we went to Italy, Luxembourg, Sweden. I mean, she made this company just as kids. It was an amazing experience to have. And we were doing everything from the dancing to the drumming. So I'd already had that background in sort of West African dance. So when Paula was like, do you want to do dance? I was like, sure, and joined Fusion at Brown University. And at Brown, it was one of those forks, again, in the road when I was graduating. Because I had auditioned for the Ailey School and gotten in. And at that same time, I was trying to decide whether or not I wanted to go and spend a year in China, teaching English and also practicing Mandarin Chinese. Because one of the things that I'd done when I was at school is I was very curious about China. It was such a different country, and I felt like to understand the culture, I needed to know the language. And so I started learning Mandarin. And when I went and talked to Jimmy Ren, who was my Mandarin teacher, he basically said, China will always be there, but your ability to dance won't. And again, forks in the road. So I ended up going to the Edisa school. I have still not made it to mainland China. I've been to Taiwan, but not to mainland China. And I thought I would just go to Ailey for a little bit to get dance out of my system, and then at some point go back to school for graphic design. And While I was at Ailey, it was at very beginning of the certificate program. I was the second class in the certificate program. There were about 30 people who started and only 3 people finished. And I was not one of them. And it was one of those where we were sometimes taking like 7 or 8 classes a day. And so we were going from modern to ballet to West African to a rehearsal, back to another class, back to rehearsal. And so I injured myself. I tore my meniscus cartilage. And I really had to think, did I want to dance? How badly did I want to dance? Did I want to pursue a career in dance? And I decided that I hadn't gotten that dance bug out yet. And I started working with Kathy Grant. I feel I would not be dancing now if not for Kathy Grant. Kathy Grant was this little spitfire of a Black woman. I came out of the WPA project. She worked with Joe Pilates and taught Pilates. And that time it was at Bendel's. And so I remember like walking into Bendel's department store and going up to the 8th floor and feeling really special because here I am in my like raggedy dance clothes and they're all this like fancy outfits all around you in the store that I can't even afford. Like like a little pair of underwear would be like $500. And like going up to the 8th floor and having Pilates with Kathy Grant. And I feel that I would not be dancing now if not for Kathy and also for yoga. Like those 2 things got me back. And just knowing how to work with a knee injury and how to like just take care of your body. And part of that process of like rethinking, do I still want to dance? What am I doing? I was talking to Nem Brito, who worked for Dance Brazil. And Nem was like, you should audition for the company. And I kind of auditioned, not really expecting anything, but then I got in. So that was my first professional dance experience, is dancing with Jelon Vieira and Dance Brazil. It couldn't have been a more amazing and fabulous entry into like the professional dance world. My first tour with them was a bus and truck, which was literally like, it was in California, down Route 1? And we would show up at a theater, tech, rehearse, perform that night, go to the hotel, get in the bus the next day, go to the next place. And but the singing that would happen in the van, people would get into like arguments, but then someone would start singing and then like everything was like okay for the moment. Laurie Meal was part of that. It was amazing getting to work with Laurie Meal. There's one time at Lake Tahoe, we're like, we got to go see Lake Tahoe. It's Lake Tahoe. And then we're like, okay. Laurie Mill was like, let's go swimming. And we were like, okay. And Laurie Mill and I were the only ones who were like, we're going skinny dipping. So we just like jumped in the water and went skinny dipping in Lake Tahoe. It was freezing cold, but totally worth it. And then from working with Dance Brazil, again, crossroads. I auditioned for Last Supper at Uncle Tom's Cabin and The Promised Land with Bill T. Jones, and I got in. And that was an incredible, incredible experience, just to, especially the ending in The Promised Land, when there are 30, 40 people on stage from like 19 to in their 70s and all different body types and shapes and sizes, and we're all naked, just out on stage. And that idea of what is a promised land, how can we all be seen, how can we all be visible? And from that, Bill asked me to work with on Mother of Three Sons, the opera. Also working on Last Supper at Uncle Tom's Cabin, The Promised Land is how I met Homer Avila. And we started talking and hanging out with each other. And at that time, I was still doing some work at the Ailey School. And so we could get studio space for free. And Homer and I just got into the studio and started playing around with each other. And meaning that he literally would say, here I come, catch me. And I'm like, all right. I caught you. And Homer came from a gymnastics background. So I feel like I became his jungle gym because Homer's also came up to about here on me. And it was really about figuring out, okay, even though I was taller, we weighed the same. And it was experimenting with how can we use our weight, how can we use our momentum and bounce off of each other, and literally becoming each other's sort of playground, to figure out, okay, what does partnering mean? How do we partner? How do we physicalize our ideas into motion? And from that, we did one piece called "It Broke at Dawn," and got a lot of great sort of feedback from it, from performing it around in different places. And they were like, "Oh, let's do it again." And then we tried a second piece, and it was horrible. It totally sucked. um, but we didn't give up, and so we kept going and created a third piece, which was a lot better. And so we kind of fell into having a company together, which we called Avila Weeks Dance. And we were a duet partner for about 10 years. And then, and before that, and also in between all of that, Homer introduced me to Jane Comfort. And so I worked with Jane Comfort. I also worked with Annie B. Parsons, Big Dance Theater, both of who were huge influences on me. I also got to work with different people over the years, from Jody Oberfelder to Sally Silvers, to Reggie Wilson, Fist and Heel Performance Group. Reggie was also a real strong base for me in terms of like a creative home to work with. And Homer at one point started having a lot of pain in his right leg, and we just assumed it was chronic dancer wear and tear of the cartilage. And finally had it checked out. We had actually done a residency and a workshop at Boston College, and he was in so much pain after that performance. And so we came back to New York City, and the next day he went and got it checked out, and it turns out that he had this rare type of cancer. And the doctor was like, "I don't even know how you're walking," because it sort of had eaten away at his hip. So it was like Swiss cheese. And he said, like, at any step, any jump, you could have your femur just like driving through your hip. And I need to operate on you tomorrow. So it was like seeing a whole career just come crashing down. And how do that was how we earned a living. That was our main source that was my identity. And so having to really, it was like going into caretaker mode. I became Homer's primary caretaker. He had his leg amputated from the hip down. And what was amazing, because it's a rare type of cancer that doesn't respond to chemotherapy. So all you can do is cut it out. And Homer, probably about 4 months after having his leg amputated, was back taking class. And it was one of the amazing things of talking to him. His earlier life had been as a gymnast, and he had had an accident while he was being a gymnast. He was actually on track to be like an Olympic gymnast, and then he'd had an accident and had completely changed his life. And he felt like that accident had prepared him for losing his leg. And because of being a gymnast, he was very comfortable just being upside down and on his hands. And it was one of those challenging moments for both of us in terms of how do we continue Avila Weeks Dance. And some of the challenge for me is that Homer was incredibly gregarious. It's like everybody knew Homer because he just was constantly out doing things, seeing stuff. But Homer also had a lot of demons and a lot of anger. And if you got very close to him, you got burned, and burned badly. And one of the things I realized is that I would, in some ways, a lot of my creativity would have to take a back burner for what was happening with Homer and the amazingness of what he was doing, of being able to dance on one leg. And I was willing to do that, but I wasn't willing to do that and be an emotional punching bag. I couldn't take both. And so I had to sort of step away, and then that's where my own company, Delirious Dances, came into being. And I chose Delirious because I thought you had to be a little delirious to want a modern dance company. And also for me, where creative inspiration comes from, and that sense of loving that ability to take disorder and chaos and create something beautiful or something that has meaning, but starting from this place of delirium. I'm sometimes feeling that that's where I'm channeling energy from to create, is from this place of delirium. And so Delirious Dances, I started in 2003. And now, wow, almost 20 years later, it is still going. And I don't know where I am with time. And
Perfect transition.
Yeah.
Perfect. Wait a minute, 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Go almost 20 years. Yeah. So 2003. Yeah.
Gosh, dang it, right?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, Edisa, thank you. Thank you. Come on back, Christal. And I think we might even have questions in the chat. Hot potato. Look at that. All right.
Oh,
I knew this.
Cheers, my friend.
Oh, wait, yeah, cheers.
Hey, we have the same glass too. Look, see, I want to be when I grow up.
Wait, now I feel left out a little bit.
I'll send you some.
Wait, when I said I feel left out, Crystal went,
You're in a whole other league. Like, I mean, you can't be everything. I mean, you just can't be everywhere. Zoom makes it feel like you can, but you know, it's okay. You're mama, Charmaine. We're just like over here trying to, do what we do.
yeah, when I grow up, I'm going to be all of y'all. So don't even try that. Please. Okay, this is a big one.
Mhm.
That's all I'm going to say. From Wendy. So, what is both of your definitions of, I'm going to capitalize Black, Wendy, Black dance?
Okay, I'll start. I'll jump in and start. Because as I was listening to Edisa, I think I realized something that is very clear about our experience that would make this combination or us having this conversation important. So, Black dance for me is about the experience of the skin you're in, which is really the blackness that you inhabit, which is really, for me, this is just me, just me, right? For me, is the experience of finding self-love in a dichotomous environment. Right. And I say that to say that what I just realized between Edison and I is that in second grade, I became the smart Black girl, right? And that was also the only Black girl in my dance classes, right? And so understanding that only sometimes allows you to be on the perimeter in a way that doesn't feel isolating, but feels as though you have a bigger perspective of what could happen, what should happen, and what's happening to and from you. Now, when I got kind of baptized, like I call it, into Black dance, which was like, on tour with Chuck Davis with no African dance experience, what I learned is that there were communities who were developing self love practices based around this body knowledge. And that body knowledge had seeped into my experience just as being raised as a Black woman in the South, but it hadn't materialized or become embodied in a way that I could trace its lineage to something. Right. And so when I think of Black dance, I think of the love it takes to commit to self, to take care of community, and the inquiry that we desire to know where the things we do come from.
Edisa.
I intensely dislike these terms because I feel like they categorize in very limiting ways. And if I'm having to sort of put it into a very encompassing world, um, it's a connection to spirituality. It's a connection to polyrhythms. It's a connection to storytelling. It's a connection to abstraction. It's a connection to juxtaposing ideas. It's a connection to family. Um, it's it's hard because I feel race is such a construct in America, but it's a construct. We are all human beings. But I say that in that sense, I also celebrate my individuality. I celebrate that I have an afro. I love my afro. But it took me a long time to celebrate that because for a long time I was told to pull my hair back, keep it nice, keep it neat, keep it in, it was constantly like pull back. When I showed up at the Ailey school, I had like little braids and they were dyed blonde at the top. And I was told that I had to change my hair. Yeah. Um, that, Black dance to me is that connection to an African diaspora and an African lineage. It uh, it is more than the color of my skin. It's more than what I eat. It's more than how I talk. The problem with race in America is it limits us to our skin tone. Just like what is white. There's no real whiteness. But to be in America, whiteness becomes the default. But then you also have to give up your German identity. You have to give up your Italian identity. You have to give up your Jewish identity. You have to assimilate. And so for me, what emphasizing Black dance is, it's the resisting the assimilation. And it's also saying that, I am this person who has a lot of complexities. Because if I look at it, I am, my dad is white, my mom is Black. So I have a lot of complexities in me. But why I'm being defined by my Blackness, I'm not being defined by my whiteness. Yeah. So I think this is an ongoing discussion, but I'm hoping we can get to a point where we no longer need to have it. We can just celebrate all our differences and everything that makes us unique.
Ashe. Okay, Jay, this is from Jay. Where should the next generation of artists bring attention to that might not already be looking, where they might not already be looking? And you can define the next generation however you wish, says Jay.
Mm-hmm. I'm just going to be honest and say I don't know, because I actually don't know where the gaps are. Again, I just want to be really honest about where I am in this field right now. Right? Like if we were talking circa 2007, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I was like grinding it out in the Bronx, building in spirit, looking for every piece of change that I could find, then I could maybe understand what the experience is of this generation of artists. I will say that what I do know about my students coming out of this collegiate environment and the dancers who I come in contact with is that the pull towards success in the structure that has been created, and the simultaneous pull to be authentic as an artist feels like a tearing in two. And I will say, I think that's because the system is broken.
Come on.
And the authenticity is, real life is the new authenticity. And that hasn't been, for the most part, what we've been putting on stage. And so I think it comes back to the conversation that Edisa and I were having earlier about a restructuring of values. Where and what do we value as a part of the human experience that should be staged, that should be performed, that should be created, or that, at this point, we're talking about this copywriting dance move that should be owned. Right? Like, there's so many things in there that from my perspective, I think there are a lot of bridges to be built with, but really hoping that what's been built so far doesn't tear these emerging artists apart.
I feel like I can't speak for the next generation because I'm not of that generation, but I can share what excites me. I'm excited by Dance Artists National Collective that are really looking at can we get a universal wage for dancers? You know,
Mm,
we start a dancers union um, so that when you come out of school or if you're with a company, that you can be guaranteed that you're going to earn a living wage. I'm excited by fostering new futures, which is looking at how dancers, especially choreographers and presenters, can have a more equitable relationship so
Mhm.
that who has traditionally it's been the presenters who have the power in negotiating a contract, but how can we come at it more as a partnership so that choreographers and presenters are more on equal level in terms of negotiating that partner. So if you're going to put in the contract that the presenter has the right to cancel this contract at any time, well then, hey, the choreographer should also have the right to be able to cancel this contract at any time. I mean, within reason, but how can there be more
mhm,
equity in
mhm.
how these contracts are written? Um, I'm excited by Pretty Big Movement, which is a dance company of big women. They're all like 200 plus. You know, they are big women, but they are kick ass and awesome. Um, I'm excited by how this pandemic is really forcing us, and it's been painful,
Mm,
but
mm.
rethink structures of how we make work. Um, I'm excited by what this virtual world might present, like the whole idea of, I mean, it's already happening in like Second Life, and but the idea of like, could we create a world where everyone kind of goes into a virtual world and then you are attending a virtual performance? Could there still be some sort of physical connection to it? I'm not sure what that will be, um, but other, is it like when you do the tennis games, on TV or with your Wii, and then but can there be some dancing part of it? I don't know. I'm excited by what that might be, like a virtual dance world, but still connected to a physical practice.
So, ever the poet, to expound on where you are, Edisa, where did I say Edisa? Vincent asks, from your artistic bread, what crumbs are you leaving for the young generation to find, eat, and digest?
Mm.
Hi, Vincent.
Right.
Love you, Scorpio. So what I feel like I've left is Liquid Strength, which is a training module, right? I've left Project Becoming, which is 5 essential questions. I've left legacies in my students like Cameron McKinney about how you bring both or all the parts of yourself into something you want to create and share. And hopefully, through every student, client, artist that I work with, there's some residue of just some real authentic love that they can share.
Oh,
I hope they can follow that.
I would share that really and I don't call them crumbs. I would say, how can I plant seeds? And so for me, that's really been my calling or task as a teacher, in how can I plant seeds, and they might not sprout in my lifetime, but how can I plant possibilities and ideas and nurture other people so that they can grow to their full potential.
okay, one last one. Yes, I agree. Both of you. This is from Henry Lee, and this is a quick response. Could you see yourself doing anything but dance today if you could change your choice of passion? Hot dang.
I would probably be a gardener.
Oh, right. And wait, I said quick, but tell them what you just said to us that's going on in your brain.
When we started and we're just chatting in the very beginning, um, Makida had mentioned that she was excited about that it's getting warmer, and I echoed that. in that I want to plant grass seeds in the community garden park in our neighborhood, but the temperature has to be above 60 degrees in order for the seeds to germinate, because if it goes below 60, they'll start hibernating. So I'm so excited that we're getting to warmer weather and I can actually plant this grass seeds.
Yay.
And I don't mean weed. I mean like green blades of grass.
Uh, oh, I just forgot the question. Okay. Um, I'm sorry, Mr. Lee. I think Henry Lee. Um, Honestly, I'm doing it right now. Like I don't have any. My biggest thing that I teach my students that I live by is I have two core values. One is I don't do anything. My core values are love and trust. I don't do anything I don't love. I don't work with people I don't trust. And then the other one is that I cannot leave this life with extra stuff that I didn't use. So at this stage in my life, I get the same rush from being on a stage with thousands of people that I do coaching clients, that I do watching people grow to their fullest potential, that I do in and out of the classroom. So if I was going to do anything else, I mean, I'd just be doing this all day, or like, hanging out with Oprah in her avocado field, just talking.
Wait, I thought you meant this.
This is what I did.
Okay. Just checking. I'm just checking. Time to say goodbye.
See you later.
Time to say sayonara. But please, if you have shout outs to do or tell us what might be coming up, believe it or not, things are in fact coming up.
Woohoo.
Share with your people. Share.
Well, if you haven't had a chance to see Same But Different by myself and Lida Winfield, hopefully it's coming to a digital space near you. Also look out for the digital premiere of What We Ask of Flesh in early September. If you are not and do not know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about steps and stages, then you need to jump over and follow at Life Steps and Stages on Facebook and Instagram. And I look forward to seeing you again somewhere in this virtual or real life. And I believe everything you need, want, or desire is working its way towards you.
You better preach. You better.
Okay. But I think say the two links, the links again and the where to go. Say those one more time.
At Life Steps and Stages on Facebook and Instagram. And anything you need is at christalbrown.com.
You go, Christal.
Order number one.
Let's see. I have roots parties coming up. One in June, July, and August. If you go to the website, we're posting information about that. I'm in the process of making 1,865 roots. 1865 is the last year of legalized enslavement in America. You can see some of the roots behind me, and it's for a project performance called Three Rights Liberty, which is looking at the pathologizing of African Americans by psychiatry and also the foundations of liberty in America and how can we undo toxic systems of oppression. And the full piece premieres in fall of 2023 at 651 Arts.
Woohoo.
And I think that's what's immediately on the radar for me. And then I'm working on another project called Action Songs Protest Dances, which is, I'm so grateful to be working with Spirit McIntyre, Martha Redbone, and Taina Asili as composers. They're each composing 2 songs. One will be based on the James Forman archives at Queen's College, and the other one will be on a social justice issue. And that will premiere in fall of 2022. So super
Nice.
Edisa, are you still sending home packages of the roots for people to make their own?
Yeah, we're
Okay.
doing all the roots parties are going to be virtual, so people can request a roots kit, and we will mail you a roots kit. So you can
Just
join.
like that.
Yeah.
Thank you both so much. So much.
Yes.
I send it to Maki, and we're still here with you.
Thank you, everyone, for being a part of this conversation. Just thank you. A reminder to like, comment on this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on our social media, and let's grow this beautiful community. Also, a huge thanks to our co-presenting partner, 651 Arts for helping to make Black Dance Stories continue to happen. You can check all the wonderful things that they're doing on their social media. Their Instagram is at 651 Arts. So next week starts off or kicks off our May lineup, which includes Ephraim Sykes, James Cricket Coulter, Reggie Wilson, Fauna Frazier, Rena Butler, Christina Johnson, Adia Tamar Whitaker, and Naja Whitson. So stay tuned for the May schedule that will be posted on our social media, and save those Thursday BDS dates. We'll see you next week.
I just want to do one quick update. So unfortunately, Christina can't join us, but it's Ayun Harrison. Hot dang. But May, clearly, Black Dance Stories just keeps going. Boom, boom, and boom.
Boom diggity.
Boom diggity. Seriously, boom diggity.
Boom diggity.
Last cheers, last goodbye. Thank you all so much again. And everybody, as the good congressman said, go on out there and get into some good trouble. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers.